Hello, my name is Alberto Hinojosa. I am Assistant Principal at Boerne Middle School North and also serve as the Boerne Independent School District's Title IX Coordinator. This video was created in collaboration with BISD's Director of Legal Affairs, Craig Radke, and will provide information important and necessary for you to know about harassment, sexual harassment, as well as other legal topics including child abuse, bullying, and suicide in schools. All students and employees have the right to attend and work in BISD without any discrimination motivated by race, religion, sex, gender, or disability. Through the course of the video, you will learn what is prohibited, what to do to address inappropriate behavior, and learn how to report suspected child abuse or signs of student depression. Let's go ahead and start by discussing harassment. Harassment is intimidation by threats of or actual physical violence that creates a climate of hostility or intimidation. It is the use of language, conduct, or symbols in a manner that conveys hatred, contempt, or prejudice that is delivered with an intended purpose of insulting or stigmatizing an individual. Examples of harassment include offensive name-calling, telling jokes about someone, or using pictures and objects to offend. Discrimination is any conduct directed at an employee or student on the basis of race, color, religion, gender, national origin, or any other basis prohibited by law that negatively affects the employee or student. Sexual harassment is sexual attention that is unwanted. This includes any unwelcome physical contact, sexual remarks about a person's body or clothing, sexual questions, jokes, anecdotes, or stories, and sexually explicit materials in the classroom or workplace that have no educational or work-related purpose. Any sexually motivated verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of communication that is unwelcome is a form of harassment. Unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature constitute sexual harassment when submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly, submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis for decisions affecting an individual's employment or academic advancement. Such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with the person's work or academic performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work, learning, or social environment. Sexual harassment training is necessary because sexual harassment exists, because many times it is ignored and unreported, and because it is the most common form of harassment. Sexual harassment is prohibited both in the workplace under Title VII and in the school content under Title IX. Traditionally, courts have two different forms of sexual harassment. The first is quid pro quo, which occurs when a person in a position of authority over another demands sexual favors in exchange for a concrete benefit. Examples of this are continued employment or a promotion or better grades. An example may be a teacher offering a student a better grade or a particular position on a team in exchange for a kiss, or a supervisor offering an employee a higher evaluation or promotion in exchange for accompanying him or her to dinner. The second is hostile environment sexual harassment, which occurs when one person subjects another to unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature that are unsolicited and offensive to the victim. This type of harassment happens when an environment is so offensive and hostile that it interferes with the person's ability to work and deprives the victim to access to opportunities or benefits. In schools, there are different types of sexual harassment. They are administrator to employee or supervisor to employee, employee to employee, teacher to student, student to student, and student to teacher. It is very important to know that targets of harassment include students, employees, and volunteers. Indirect targets of harassment include bystanders and witnesses. The victim does not have to be the person harassed, but could be anyone affected by the offensive conduct. Unlawful sexual harassment may occur without an economic injury to the victim. The harasser's conduct must be unwelcome. It is always helpful for the victim to directly inform the harasser that the conduct is unwelcome and must stop. The victim should use any employer complaint mechanism or grievance system available to report the harassment. So what do you do if you experience harassment or discrimination at BISD? If you experience or witness any type of harassment, seek assistance within the school system promptly. Talk to someone you trust. Keep a written record and make it clear to the harasser that the behavior will not be tolerated. Report any inappropriate actions with your administrator or supervisor. If a student reports harassment or discrimination, it is very important to listen carefully to the student's allegations, to let them know you take him or her seriously, advise the student to tell the offending person to stop, and report the harassment to your administrator or supervisor. It is also very important to follow up with the student. To prevent sexual harassment, you must educate yourself. You must be sensitive and perceptive when interacting with others, and always be professional in the manner in which you act or speak. Do not make inappropriate contact, gestures, or engage in any sexual conversation. Always keep all actions job-related. It is always important, too, to be mindful of your informal interactions with coworkers. The district prohibits retaliation against any employee who makes a report in good faith, serves as a witness, or participates in an investigation. If you are experiencing sexual harassment, please contact me at 830-357-3104 or by email at eberto.hinojosa@boerne-isd.net, or you may contact Mr. Craig Radke at 830-357-2081, and his email is craig.radke@boerne-isd.net. Next, we'll discuss the four major types of child maltreatment, which are physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. Physical abuse is physical injury that results in substantial harm to the child, or the genuine threat of substantial harm from physical injury to the child. The physical injury ranges from minor bruises to severe fractures and can result from punching, beating, shaking, kicking, biting, and many other actions. Such injury is considered abuse regardless of whether the caretaker intended to hurt the child. Indications of physical abuse include frequent injuries such as bruises, cuts, black eyes, or burns without adequate explanations, frequent complaints of pain without obvious injury, burns or bruises in unusual patterns that may indicate the use of an instrument or a human bite or cigarette burns on any part of the body, lack of reaction to pain, aggressive, disruptive, and destructive behavior, fear of going home or seeing parents, injuries that appear after a child has not been seen for several days, and unreasonable clothing that may hide injuries to arms or legs. The next type of abuse is neglect. Neglect is failure to provide for a child's basic needs necessary to sustain life or health of the child, excluding failure caused primarily by financial inability, unless relief services have been offered and refused. You can suspect neglect when you see obvious malnourishment, when you see lack of personal cleanliness in the student, you see torn or dirty clothing, you see the student stealing or begging for food, when the child is unattended for long periods of time, when there's a need for glasses, dental care, and other medication, or frequent tardies or absences from school. Sexual abuse of a child is defined in the Texas Family Code as sexual conduct harmful to a child's mental, emotional, or physical welfare, as well as failure to make a reasonable effort to prevent sexual conduct with the child. Sexual abuse includes fondling the child's genitals, penetration, incest, rape, sodomy, indecent exposure, and exploitation through prostitution or producing pornographic materials. Suspect sexual abuse when you see physical signs of STDs, when there's evidence of injury to the genital area, when there's a pregnancy in a young girl, when a student has difficulty sitting or walking, when the student has an extreme fear of being alone with adults of a certain sex, There are sexual comments, behaviors, or play. Knowledge of sexual relations beyond what is expected for a child's age. And sexual victimization of other children. Emotional abuse is mental or emotional, and it results in observable impairment in a child's growth, their psychological functioning, as well as their development. It includes extreme forms of punishment, such as confining a child in a dark closet, habitual scapegoating, belittling, and rejecting treatment for a child. You can suspect emotional abuse when you see overcompliance, low self-esteem, severe depression, anxiety, or aggression, when you see difficulty making friends or doing things with other children, when there's a lag of physical, emotional, and intellectual development, or when you have a caretaker who belittles a child, who withholds love, and who seems unconcerned about their problems. Signs that are more typical in adolescence include self-injury, like cutting and burning, inadequate personal hygiene, drug and alcohol abuse, sexual promiscuity, running away from home, depression and anxiety, suicide attempts, fear of intimacy or closeness, and compulsive eating or dieting. Anyone who suspects that a child has been abused has a legal responsibility under the state law to report abuse within 48 hours. Failure to report could lead to criminal liability. There are no allowances for the weekend, so it is very important that as soon as you suspect that a child has been abused, to report it within 48 hours. Reporting abuse cannot lead to personal liability as long as it was done in good faith. A professional may not delegate or rely on another to make a report. The report must be reported to Child Protective Services and/or to law enforcement. The phone number to the Texas Abuse Hotline is 1-800-252-5400, and their website is www.texasabusehotline.org. txabusehotline.org. Lastly, in this video, we would like to discuss student depression and suicide warning signs. Teenagers may be likely to think about suicide when there's some kind of trigger on top of an underlying substance abuse or mental health condition. Common triggers are a parent's divorce, a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or the death of a friend or relative. A teenager who feels unhappy and helpless with no one to reach out to is at an increased risk of suicide. It is important to pay close attention if a student talks about suicide, and it is important to be aware of the warning signs, which include feelings of sadness or hopelessness, often accompanied by anxiety. Declining school performance, loss of pleasure and interest in social and sports activities, as well as poor attendance and destructive behavior at school are indicators of suicide. Other indicators include sleeping too little or too much, major changes in weight or appetite, the inability to concentrate or think clearly, and a withdrawal from family or friends. If a student mentions suicide, or if you see the warning signs, it is very important that you listen, that you avoid criticism, and that you keep communication open between you and the student. Immediately report it to an administrator or counselor. Bullying may also push a student to think about suicide. Bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Bullying includes actions such as making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically or verbally, and excluding someone from a group on purpose. Kids can bully others. They can be bullied, or they may witness bullying. It's very important to understand the multiple roles kids play in order to effectively prevent and respond to the bullying. Every campus at BISD should educate all students about bullying, as well as have adequate interventions in place for all students involved. All employees should act promptly when bullying is reported. You have now completed the required legal topics training. We hope that this format allowed some flexibility in your schedules and that you continue to have an excellent school year. Thank you very much for all you do. Goodbye.